Hello, I'm Kathleen Hall of CIO Marketing Services. The technology sector is facing a serious skills shortage, something that is expected to impact 9 out of 10 organisations by 2026, according to IDC. However, when it comes to attracting and retaining talent, businesses sometimes struggle, particularly when it comes to neurodiversity in the workplace. In this webcast, brought to you by CIO and Experis, our expert panel will discuss the challenges and opportunities of neurodiversity in the tech industry. We'll discuss how businesses can create more inclusive hiring and workplace practices, cover the benefits of neurodiverse teams, and provide practical steps for support, including real-world experiences. By developing strategies to build a pipeline of neurodiverse talent, businesses can create more inclusive workforces and ensure they're staying ahead in a competitive market. Joining me today to discuss this topic, I have two guests, Stuart Nicol, Director at Experis, and Sarah Croxford, Strategic Public Sector Industry Leader at Microsoft and Neurodiversity Coach. Welcome both. Would you like to say a few words to introduce yourselves? Stuart, do you want to go first?
Sure. So my name's Stuart. I'm a white man, short hair and brown eyes. I'm wearing a blue jumper, and my pronouns are he and him. So for the past 20 years, I've worked in the technology recruitment sector, supporting organizations and shaping their talent strategies. As someone with dyslexia, I've witnessed significant changes in the workplace inclusivity since starting my career in 2005. Both my children are also dyslexic, which has deepened my passion for educating organizations and allowing organizations to understand the strengths and unique talents that neurodiverse workforce can bring.
Thank you. And Sarah?
Hi, yes, hello, I'm Sarah Croxford. Just for the means of inclusion, we tend to put a description into some of the things we talk about. So just for the purpose of this, I'm a white woman with shoulder length brown hair and brown eyes, and I'm wearing a dark blue V-neck top. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the Public Sector Strategy Industry Lead at Microsoft. I've been working there for the last 16 years. I've got lived experience being neurodiverse myself and including family members that are also neurodiverse. I'm an accredited ADHD coach and support several mental health organisations. I'm on the board for a neurodiverse charity as well that supports parents and carers of families of children with special needs, and that includes neurodiversity.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for being here. So Sarah, I wanted to start by asking, what do we mean when we talk about neurodiversity?
Yeah, brilliant question. So the Royal College of Nursing defines neurodiversity as the natural diversity that exists in human brains. I love Professor Amanda Kirby's definition that goes a little bit further, that says she talks about neuro in the sense that all brains will work differently, regardless of whether you're neurotypical or neurodiverse, and the sense of diversity in the sense that everybody is different. I think neurodiversity, it becomes an umbrella term for everything that sits under that. So you've heard of ADHD, of autism, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, dyslexia, Tourette's, tics, acquired brain injuries, etc. And there's more that sits under that umbrella. But it's important to think about each of these will present very differently for everybody, and they're very different and very unique for each person. We like to consider it as a spectrum of all of those. So everyone will have different traits in the way they see the world and they experience the world. So we can't assume that one person's experience of neurodiversity is the same as somebody else's. So to break down some of the misunderstanding within neurodiversity, if you think of something along the lines of ADHD, so that's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, it's been given two words in there, deficit and disorder, that are both quite wrong in terms of their definition, and disorder was given that clinical term many decades ago. And deficit is actually the last thing that people with ADHD have, because when they're interest-based and they're focused on something they really enjoy and it appeals to their interest-based system, they can have amazing output, high focus. And neurodiversity brings huge strengths into organizations, and that's problem solving, it's innovation, it's agility, it's the ability to see things in a very distinct and unique and different way. And why are we here focusing about neurodiversity today? Well, around about 10 to 15% of the workforce will have some degree of hidden disability neurodiversity. And if you think about that, that's a significant group of individuals that have an expert talent pool of skills that we should be kind of working with and developing and actually utilising, where we have so much of a challenge around technology skills being brought into the workplace in the first place.
Fantastic, thank you. That's really useful context. So following on from that point, why is neurodiversity important for the tech industry? Obviously, it's important across tech sectors, but Stuart, maybe could I start with you, please?
Yeah, no worries. The tech industry thrives in innovation, and neurodiverse individuals bring unique problem-solving abilities, they bring creativity and attention to detail that help drive progress. Many neurodivergent professionals excel in pattern recognition, deep focus, and thinking outside the box, all of which are crucial in areas like software development, cybersecurity, and data analysis. So beyond innovation, embracing neurodiversity also makes business sense. Diverse teams perform better, approach challenges differently, and can help companies connect with a broader customer base, including those with neurodiverse and accessibility needs. And we're seeing that organizations that prioritize neurodiversity are more competitive, adaptive, and inclusive. And this is ensuring that they remain ahead of an ever-evolving industry within technology.
Great, thank you. And Sarah, did you have anything to add on that point?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Stuart said in there. I think, neurodiversity as a whole, if you look at it for where we are at the moment, the tech industry is at that point of breaking barriers. It's developing innovations at a rapid pace. And the great benefit that people with neurodiversity bring to that is they're part of that evolution and innovation. So areas like, for example, artificial intelligence, they thrive on diverse, groundbreaking thinking. And we can't say that innovation can't progress because we can't, if we're adhering to traditional thought patterns, we have to think differently around it. And those strengths are crucial for growth, for innovation, for breaking down technology barriers. And if we think about it, it's not just for our own employees, we've got our own organizations, but think about the customers that we're serving and the citizens that we serve as well. And, if we look at the 10% of those are potentially neurodiverse as well, how are we actually interacting with our customers to meet them at their neurodiverse needs, their accessibility needs that they need? And we need to be able to create tools, applications, software development that's actually going to support them where they need it to help create parity in the workplace. And it's not, understanding neurodiversity isn't just a thing. This should be about simply good business practice. And that's why we need to spend more time and more focus on doing this and really leveraging the skills of a really diverse workforce and looking at how we can help everyone to not just survive in a workplace, but actually thrive in the workplace. And that's got to be critical.
Thanks, that's really well put. So I wanted to talk about some of the common workplace challenges for neurodivergent professionals. Stuart?
Yeah, and I think that we're seeing organisations embracing and moving forward neurodivergent professionals, but we still see them individuals facing barriers, and that can be anything from a workplace structure and the expectations on them. We still see organizations with very rigid schedules, open plan offices, and a very conventional way to performance metrics that doesn't always necessarily align to the working styles of neurodiverse individuals. There's something definitely around miscommunication and a misunderstanding. So some neurodivergent employees may struggle with unspoken social rules, indirect communication, and sensory overload within the workplace. And that leads to difficulties around collaboration. And then I think when you look at where organizations need to adapt and where they do face barriers is that kind of lack of accommodation. So it's just small adjustments in someone's flexible working arrangements, noise cancelling tools, and task prioritization and support can allow these barriers to be broken down within the workplace and allow someone with neurodiversity to excel in the workplace.
Thank you. And what are some of the challenges that you're seeing, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, they're huge. I think Stuart's covered most of those, pretty solidly, to be honest. I think what we do see is, that point around people and communication is a big challenge, and things around, people may mask in order to fit in. That puts them under huge amounts of individual stress and anxiety, and ultimately in burnout. If they're trying to exist in this world that actually has expectations of them, that perhaps they just need to be thought of in a different way. From a physical perspective, loud noises, walking into, the all-day meetings that we have very often, it can be really intimidating, noisy, bright lights, etc., crowded spaces. It can be really overwhelming for people. So just being able to provide, spaces where people can go in the right sort of environment that they can go to. And I think the other thing is around, to Stuart's point around how the executive functioning needs to work around sort of some of those tools and tasks. being able to meet deadlines and be able to manage their own time and memory recall, all of those could be supported in the right environment with the right technology, with the right accommodations. This shouldn't be something that organisations ultimately feel that they have to do. It should just be integral to their culture and help them attract the best talent that they can.
Great, thank you. So when it comes to recruitment and hiring, can you tell us a bit more about how organisations can adapt their processes to attract neurodiverse talent?
Yeah, shall I take this one? So I think, it starts right at the beginning from, the job description, right at the start. We often see job descriptions full of jargon, full of abbreviations, and we need to focus them on the essential skills and the responsibility that a job has. And the nuance of expression that we tend to use quite often when we talk. Moving, even interviews into practical skill-based examples rather than traditional competency-based interviews can really, really help as well. I think training managers is particularly important, particularly around things like unconscious bias, where they have a perception of a candidate before they see them. And to my point earlier, everyone's experience is very different, so we shouldn't have those unconscious biases that do exist. And it's important that we consider people and their skills and their potential. We need to look at, making sure the panel of interviewers is fair, it's balanced, it's creating the right environment. Looking at how we're offering flexible work arrangements within our job descriptions as well. I think individually, if you look at accommodations before you go into interviews, there could be numerous things that we can offer. So, for example, things like additional time, get content in accessible formats, or, it maybe you need even someone to read the documents or real-time transcriptions or automated captions. Have more breaks within the interview times. All of those can be part of an accommodation you would expect to get as an interview anyway. I think it's important to be respectful. It's important to make it easy and simple, and to be guided by the individual around what they need as well in order to support them in the best way. I think the other piece of guidance I would give is at the end of that interview. We've all been there when someone said, "Oh, I'll get back to you in about a week," and you're sitting there and you have an expectation that you will have a response in a week, and if you don't, it's actually you take an automatic "I've been rejected, I don't fit this organisation." You start to look for something else. So I think ultimately, being really clear around that feedback and the format in which you deliver that feedback is absolutely vital for supporting people. As I say, Stuart, I'm sure you've got thoughts around this as well.
Yeah, and I would say you've covered all the main parts. I think it's really encouraging from us as working with organisations. We are seeing a change in mindset for organisations, particularly around the interview process, and like you mentioned about breaking down that traditional model and going in some cases to more practical based interview, but ensuring that the setup for the interview allows the candidate and the individual to perform at their best of ability, and making sure there's a level playing field for everyone within the application process.
Great, thank you. And I know we've touched on it already, but did you have anything to add about the adjustments that organisations can make to help retain neurodiverse employees?
Yeah, I think retention starts really around an inclusive culture and providing the right support. So we talk about mentioned flexible working environments and ensuring that there's quiet spaces and individuals have personalized work schedules. I think something that is really important is around that mentorship and coaching. So where neurodiverse employees have access to mentors and support to allow them to perform in the best of their abilities, and within the organization, clear communication. The individuals there's different models and different ways to communicate to the workforce.
Great, thank you. Did you have anything to add on that point, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, from a Microsoft perspective, it slightly feels a little bit misnamed, if I get my words out, which is a disability employee resource group. And I think it's less about the dis, but more about the different ability that comes through from that. And, within that resource group, we will support neurodiverse individuals. There's a community group that supports in there. We have a families ERG as well that, they have a specific community channel that supports families and parents and carers of children with special needs and with neurodiversity as well. So, there's lots of things you can do with an ERG group that can really actually add benefit and support to individuals. we offer ADHD coaching as well. So, to Stuart's point, that's something that you should be able to just do. I think it's come as you are and do what you love, and that flexibility of being able to work wherever you are, whether it's at home or the office, to do your best work at the times and locations that's right for you as an individual. I think we can make our meeting etiquette far better as a whole. If you think about every meeting should have an agenda, it should have a purpose, it should have an objective. And this isn't something specific to neurodiverse people, by the way. This is just generalized etiquette that I think everybody can do. And, we shouldn't be making meetings all day. I mean, really, can we think about a point where an 8-hour meeting is actually a good idea? Can you focus for 8 hours and concentrate within that period of time? I don't think there's many people that probably could say they do. So think about, the timing, the duration, the location, and that can really just help people just in the day-to-day basis. There's lots more examples than that, but that's just to give you one.
That's great. Thank you, Sarah. And I'd love to hear a bit more about how technology is being used to support neurodiversity.
Yeah, brilliant. A great question. As I say, working for Microsoft, we'll take that question first. So Microsoft's mission is really around empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And I think if you look back at the technology, most of that's always, in fact, all of it has always been built with inclusive design throughout its entire concept. So you'll be familiar with some of the accessible tools that are probably already in there. So for example, within Teams, you've got focus mode, so you can turn off notifications, for example. You've got narrator mode for speech to text. You've got design principles. So when you go into a PowerPoint, for example, and you have that big white page staring at you, being able to just create the visuals that support you in terms of what does that construct look like and how do you build a PowerPoint, they're all there. And that's, that's been there for quite some time. I think what we've seen over the last few years, particularly over the last year, is massive changes and things like Microsoft Copilot. That's been built on, artificial intelligence, the emergence of sort of, cognitive services that started to reimagine how we create inclusive design. And there's studies from EY who talked around how things like, for example, the AI-powered assistants that we use within Microsoft products such as Teams or PowerPoint or Outlook can support inclusivity. So they've said that 85% of users can believe it fosters a much more inclusive workplace, and 76% say it helps them thrive at work. And what is Microsoft 365 Copilot? Well, it's a secure AI assistant that kind of works across all of the applications you're used to, Word and PowerPoint and everything else, Excel, etc. But it helps users with various tasks. So that could be everything from enhancing productivity, providing intelligent insights. It's not just kind of summarizing and taking actions from Teams meetings, but it does far more than that. You can even use it to translate content and help developers with coding and programming as well. And I think the interesting thing that came out of the study that EY did in collaboration with Microsoft, it really shows how you can use technology to reduce the burden on cognitive load and, support executive functions and help people express themselves in a far more effective, more adaptive and productive way. And it really does enhance communication and memory recall and focus. So it's a valuable resource for fostering an inclusive workplace. I mean, for me, I use it for things like performance reviews. So, we go into a performance review. I have to remember exactly what I did for the last 6 months and remember the projects I worked on, the people I engaged with, the impact I made and the difference it made. For me, I can just put a prompt into Copilot and it draws everything down that I've worked on for the last 6 months, provides me areas to focus on and where I can actually, do more. I think the key bit to remember is, Copilot and things like AI on this, it's not an autopilot. It doesn't do the job for me, but it does guide me. It does navigate me. It helps me to just get over some of those barriers so that I can start to focus on the areas which I really need to spend the time on and not worrying about the things that I find harder.
That's great. Thank you. Some really good tips there. Stuart, did you have anything to add on the technology point?
I think I think AI is the key part. And I know if we talk about Copilot, I use it in my daily tasks as well to support me with dyslexia. I find it gives me a huge amount of support, particularly when I'm reading through a lot of data from a summaries perspective. I think as organizations bring AI in to support, I think there's also work to be done around how we organizations upskill and reskill their workforce to ensure they're using tools such as Copilot in the most productive way for their business.
So totally agree with that, Stuart. And I think, it's about using it responsibly. And I think that's really important. AI isn't there to replace the things we're doing. It's to help. And I think that's really important. And we have to do it in a governed way. We have to do it in a secure way. We have to do it responsibly. And I think that's important for all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, Stuart, can you tell us a bit about how Experis works with companies to help build inclusive teams?
Yeah, I think we're seeing over the past few years, we've seen more and more organizations talk to us about it. Yes, bringing individuals into their workforce, but also how do they retain and upskill and reskill their neurodiverse workforce. And we always start off by saying, look, you've got to create an environment, an encourage an environment around psychological safety, and encourage open conversation, ensure it's a stigma-free environment, and allow all employees to feel comfortable in discussing what their needs are. And that's really a top-down approach. It's got to start at the exec level and filter down into the business. But the organizations where we've seen success coming through, we talk a lot about consultation and training, allowing organizations to understand the neurodiversity benefits and implement inclusive policies. We've touched on recruitment and how we bring how organizations can adapt their recruitment process to target neurodiverse individuals. We also encourage them to really partnership with advocacy groups. So we've got a platform where we can connect businesses with other organizations, but also other specific neurodiverse charities and outreach work, and then ensure there's ongoing support across the business, offering coaching, mentorship programs to ensure all the neurodiverse employees are set up for success.
Wonderful, thank you. And on the point about customers, do you have any examples of customers that you've helped in this process?
Yeah, so we partnered with a global defence organisation, and that was to support them as they embarked on an Autism at Work programme. It's an initiative aimed to integrate neurodiverse talent, particularly individuals with autism, into the workforce. So we recognise that the traditional hiring process often excluded highly skilled autistic candidates, and we support the client in designing a more inclusive recruitment approach. So we redesigned their hiring process. I mentioned that a few times. We've moved to more of practical. It's supported them and moved more to practical exercises to better assess the candidate's skills. We've provided training for managers and teams to create that inclusive work environment that I spoke about. We also worked with partners and non-for-profit organisations, and then we really embedded that mentorship and support networks to ensure the long-term success. And I think what's really key of working through that process was we saw employees hired through the program excelled in roles particularly around data analytics, software testing, and cybersecurity. We saw retention rates around the neurodiverse workforce improve. At the end of it, our client reported increased innovation, productivity, and they saw the problem-solving capabilities increase as well. So overall, it was so successful that they rolled it out to other countries, and they now have a goal: 1% of the workforce is represented by autistic employees. So, but I think it just goes to show, with the right approach and the clear goals, organisations are able to support neurodiverse employees, and that will in turn help them grow their business.
That's a wonderful case study. Thank you. Sarah, I'd love to hear about any customer examples you have as well.
Yeah, so we're working, I mean, for my role, I look after public sector customers predominantly. So there's numerous ways we've been doing that. I think, if you look at things like even from a healthcare perspective, so dealing with patients and citizens within that world, very often, there's hugely complex diagnostic clinical reports that come through. It's Health Education England that says that actually the average reading age in the UK is only 9 years old. So if you kind of put it into the context of that, they're receiving all of this information as a patient that is hugely complex. And actually, if you can just put AI over the top of that just relays that in a more simplified view that is easier for a patient to understand, it reduces anxiety before even patient gets to an appointment or to a hospital, etc. as well. So it can provide huge impacts across there, just in terms of how do you improve reading age on there. We've seen impacts as well for some of our councils where they've started to use AI across some of the requirements for education healthcare plans, which they use with the schools to support children, etc., that need more support. And that's been helping both, from a neurodiversity assessment pathway and also for the clinicians, etc., within there as well. So there's a huge amount of work being done at the moment to improve the flow of information through taking a lot of the noise, I guess, away from some of the current reporting done and actually starting to automate a lot more through, so that we can get better throughput, better productivity, and they can spend more time doing the valued work, the things that they should be doing, that can make a real difference to things like wait lists, etc., and supporting citizens and patients all the way through. So it's really important.
Thank you. That's a lovely illustration of how it can help. So I know we've covered a lot today. My final question to you both is, what advice do you have for the next steps organisations can take to make themselves more inclusive to neurodiverse employees? Sarah, shall I start with you?
I'm glad you didn't ask me for just one bit of advice, because there's probably multiple. I think firstly, make no assumptions, make no assumptions about people. Be incredibly people-centric in your approach to neurodiversity and ask people what they need. It will be really different for each person, but there's going to be common themes across it. Have a look at the recruitment, the hiring processes, the practices that you're doing, in the same way that a public sector organisation would look at co-producing their work. Do something similar along the hiring practice you have. Consider your workspaces, and do you look to redesign those or include kind of sensory areas or quiet areas? How are you going about training those managers to be, to be more supportive? To Stuart's point, he said earlier, it's top-down approach, right? This isn't this isn't just a one point in time fix for everything. This is about continual cultural training all the way through. I think, we have to promote allyship. We have to promote areas where employers feel safe and valued and able to do their best work. We should all be using the technology that actually exists, right? This can help create so much parity, so much opportunity. I mean, from Microsoft perspective as well, we have a disability answer desk. So if you're using Microsoft technology, you can actually contact them and they'll help you just work through and navigate the sort of technology that you need and how it can best help you work. So I think, there's all these tools and resources available, but I think it's really about, how do we make the right adjustments so that employees can bring their best selves to work all day, every day, and be able to thrive?
Great, thank you. And Stuart?
Yeah, that Sarah summed it up incredibly well. I think the most important thing for me would be around that psychological safety. It's having an environment where everyone's encouraged to be open, and then it's completely stigma-free. Employees feel comfortable discussing their needs, and people are there to listen and adjust hiring and workplace practices to allow, because at the end of the day, everyone wants to come to work and do the best job they can possibly do. And I think that's what all organizations have a responsibility to create that environment to allow people to succeed in whatever they choose to be the best at.
Thank you, Stuart. That's a great note to end things on. And thank you both so much for your time today on this important topic. And of course, thank you to our audience for listening. For more information about the business case for neurodiversity in tech, and if you have any further questions on this subject, please visit the resources section on your screen. I'm Kathleen Hall. Goodbye.